many other council members are following them, and they have the city's establishment and the state's establishment on their side. The idea that they are putting forward that is that we cannot address the impact of the COVID emergency in any meaningful way because we are in the COVID emergency. I mean, if you just think about that, that would be bizarrely hilarious if it were not that there were real people's lives and the most vulnerable people's livelihoods on the line. And if the idea were not cover for politicians defending the greed of big business. The argument that our open, filmed, broadcast, recorded council meetings are not open enough, justifying canceling those meetings in a backroom deal and claiming this is in defense of open public meetings, is truly Orwellian. I mean, it's stunning. This argument is being made by council members Herbold and Gonzalez, who were among the politicians who conspired behind closed doors to repeal our movement's hard-fought Amazon tax in 2018. And that was in another backroom deal in flagrant violation of the principles of the same Open Public Meetings Act, which they are claiming to be defending right now. And at that time, because of that violation, they were taken to court and then they were forced to settle that case paying taxpayer money. But I want us to remember that this is not only about this particular tax in this particular city. Ultimately, what is at stake, of course, is this tax and the ability to provide COVID assistance to our most vulnerable households to help address the housing affordability and climate emergencies and creating good jobs through a major expansion of these programs. But it's not just about that. This is related to what is emerging nationwide and globally. As I said before, we are heading into a depression like recession, and somebody will have to pay. The politicians who refuse to tax the wealthy are not taking a neutral position. They are helping to ensure that the cost of this deep crisis will be paid by working people in the form of profound and prolonged joblessness, destitution, and impoverishment, and austerity budgets with slashing already underfunded social programs. Let's keep in mind there is no austerity for the millionaires, the multimillionaires, and the billionaires. They are not only shielded from all the ravages of the recession, but in fact, they are profiteering from the crisis. Already, the Institute of Policy Studies is reporting that as of April 15th, Jeff Bezos' fortune had increased by an estimated $25 billion since January 1st. And between March 18th and April 10th, in a 3-week period when over 22 million working people lost their jobs, over that same 3-week period, US billionaire wealth increased by 282 billion, an almost 10% gain. It was only because of determined and organized mass movements, especially the historic general strikes led by socialist leaders in the labor movement in the 1930s, that the federal government under FDR was finally forced to enact the Green New Deal programs that helped working families come out from under the Great Depression. But that is the kind of mass organizing we will need, because time and time again we have seen that the vast majority of politicians and these political parties establishments are not on our side. Working people have to lead our own movements. And that is why I will urge you all to join us again, as I said, at our town hall on May 20th at 6 p.m. But in closing, I just wanted to share some important news that came out last week that we shared at a press conference last week, which the politicians would like to bury. And that is the incredibly powerful job numbers that we have, estimates that we have from our tax Amazon investments in new housing construction and Green New Deal renovations to existing homes and supporting services for people experiencing homelessness. All of this is going to create or support 34,000 jobs over the course of 10 years of this legislation. And in fact, the numbers come not from socialist sources, they come from, for example, the National Association of Home Builders, which is not exactly even pro-worker, let alone socialist. But they have found that the construction of a 100-unit multifamily building will support 90 jobs. That includes direct construction jobs, indirect jobs in wholesale and retail, and jobs in business and professional services. They also estimate that the economic activity generated by this construction of any 100-unit multifamily building will support another 71 jobs by the induced spending in the local economy. Look at this, the strong estimate of how the joblessness that is being inflicted on us by this recession, by their system, capitalism is their system, how that joblessness can be turned around if only we had the political will on the city council to pass the Amazon tax to have social housing and Green New Deal jobs. So I think, we have all the facts and the truth on our side. Let's unapologetically continue to fight for our rights. And by the way, let's just remind ourselves this fight was never going to be easy, because we know that this is class struggle. We don't believe big business is on our side. And so, once again, they have proven that there is no such situation that you can ask them nicely and they will do it. In fact, they will fight us tooth and nail. And so, this is a call to action for our movement. And I am personally really inspired and pumped up. You know why? Because as soon as the city council members, Gonzalez and Herbold, announced their betrayal, what I saw from hundreds of community members, my fellow community members, my neighbors, was not demoralization, but anger and a desire to act, with so many people contacting my office and saying, we need to fight back. Tell me what I can do. So we have no shortage of political tasks for us to get organized. Join us at the town hall. Honk your horns when people are going to be speaking in public comment today. Make sure you sign up for postering shifts. Nick Jones in my office will make sure you have posters. So let's color this city in the colors of our Amazon tax movement. Let's continue fighting back.
Thank you so much, Shama. Thank you so much, Shama, for giving us that political context. We're going to go in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much, Shama, for giving us that political context. We're going to go in a couple of minutes to Logan Swan, who is an activist in our Amazon tax movement, construction worker, building trades union member. Just before, wanted to apologize for the sound issues that we had at the beginning for some of the live streams. We appear to have that corrected now, and thank you for bearing with us. Right now, let's go to Logan Swan, who is one of the, I believe, 20 or 25 circling the city hall. Go ahead, Logan.
Yeah, my name's Logan Swan. I'm a union iron worker, rank and file member, and an activist with the Tax Amazon campaign. We're part of the caravan here that's circling City Hall. I turn my my camera around. We've got a couple dozen cars out here, decked out in signs. People are socially distancing, but standing out on the street with pickets. Calling to tax Amazon and unionize Amazon, tax Bezos. It's really exciting, and this is a good show from the movement after the shocking, but I can't say surprising about face recent kind of stab in the back from city council members who are using using some procedural the concerns over violating public meetings. Myself, those meetings are usually held, weekdays during working hours. So I haven't been able to go to them, and I'm actually able to participate now. So it's particularly ironic. But yeah, we've got I'm supporting. We're out here circling City Hall with the Tax Amazon campaign, demanding COVID relief, union wage-paying jobs, and affordable social housing for working families. So as a construction worker and union member, I'm here because the Amazon tax will create nearly 35,000 union wage-paying jobs through the next decade, with over 10,000 jobs in construction specifically. And we just came out of the longest recovery, but it's seen zero gains for working class people. And so but I remember the last recession where the private market failed to provide us with work during the last bust. And so much like the private market was unable to provide us with affordable housing during the boom, it's not going to be providing me or any of my brothers and sisters with employment during the bust. Already over a million are on unemployment rolls in Washington state, with I think 30 million nationally. And we can't afford to be idle while the wealthy use this pandemic to make off with trillions in handouts and fresh billions in profits. But yeah, it's dishonest to say that this is going to be a tax on jobs. This is a tax that will be paid out of the obscene profits of the top executives and shareholders. There's no economic evidence to show that it'll kill jobs. It's just a straight up lie. And yeah, Amazon tech workers and warehouse and delivery workers pay more in taxes as a percentage of their income than Bezos, who's been raking in, new what 35 million a day. And that's why, many of them are a part of the tax Amazon movement, just like myself. So yeah, it's I don't take the threats of billionaires, trying to use my employment as a weapon against other working class people who are struggling to get housing. And I don't take those lightly. But if we accept their blackmail, it's just a race to the bottom for workers in all cities. As long as workers allow ourselves to be pitted against one another, we all go down, and the rich just get richer. And look how workers in New York City stood up to Jeff Bezos and won. Amazon was offered $3 billion in taxpayer-funded breaks, and then in Queens, tenants and workers organized to stop that from happening. And Amazon pulled out, but then they ended up going right back in, but without costing taxpayers $3 billion in handouts. I think we can contrast that with how the Democrats and Republicans in Washington state allowed Boeing to carry out a $9 billion highway robbery in 2013, all in the name of jobs. And since 2013, Boeing's cut 13,000 jobs in Washington state. But yeah, I'm gonna turn it around. We've got other people who are participating in the caravan. So yeah, one of them is driving me right now. So I'm just gonna turn it over so that she can speak while we're driving. This is Emily MacArthur. She's a District 2 resident and an activist with the Tax Amazon campaign. Emily, why don't you tell us why you're supporting this tax on big business?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Logan. So I'm out here at City Hall driving in circles and honking my horn with a bunch of other community activists because I'm mad. I'm mad that City Council has again tried to set our movement up for a massive betrayal. Before they used the excuse that it was just done too swiftly or it was done wrong somehow, and they swore there was going to be a regional solution or even a state solution. We haven't seen that. And what we have seen is that the crisis is getting worse for working people. Of course, with this epidemic, that's a massive turn in events. And the idea that somehow funding for jobs to get out of a recession caused by the pandemic or funding for housing, which is, was already an emergency and is now just like a death sentence without access to clean water to wash your hands, etc. These excuses are downright sickening. I live in District 2, so I'm happy that Councilmember Morales, who has signed on to this initial legislation, I hope that she'll fight hard and condemn Council President Gonzalez for canceling these meetings and Councilmember Herbold for basically being the ringleader of that campaign. I think I read the Seattle Times article where Councilmember Herbold talks about how it's really clear that right now the reason that we can't pass important legislation is because they're governing quote unquote in the dark. And I do actually come to City Hall quite often. I came a lot during the 2018 fight for the Tax Amazon legislation. And I can tell you that regularly during public comment, activists had to beg city council members, including Herbold and Gonzalez, to look them in the eye because they had taken hours out of their day to make sure that they had arrived at City Hall, to be politely in line on time, to prepare their 2-minute speech, which at the last minute would often be cut down to 45 seconds. And we couldn't get them to look us in the eye. They didn't care if we were applauding or booing, and I just do not buy for 1 second that that's their major concern right now. They absolutely need to reschedule these meetings. But, like I said, I've been in this fight for a while, and I know that we can't depend on the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party establishment, to fight for what's necessary. And so that's why I'm also part of, the broader Tax Amazon movement, which is pointing towards an action conference this Saturday. That's May 16th at 2 p.m., which you can find our action conference on the Tax Amazon Facebook page. But these action conferences are really exciting time where instead of kind of hoping and waiting and wishing that we might get our emails answered, that council members in the Democratic Party might respond to some of the things that we bring up. Instead, we hold our own Democratic forum where we discuss what are the most pressing issues for us. And the Tax Amazon movement, coming out of this action conference, I believe we're going to just have to go all out and fight for a ballot initiative. And we've tried at every turn to do this in every possible safe way. We've pushed the city council to pass it, because they have the power to do that. We've also argued for the state to accept digital signatures, which they have not lifted a finger to bother to do. And so now our movement is being forced to gather signatures. Of course, we'll use masks and gloves and keep our neighbors safe, because this whole thing is about how we care about our community. But I'm frankly just disgusted and angry, and that's why I am here driving in circles outside of City Hall.
Thank you, Emily. Get my camera turned around.
Alrighty. Yeah, that actually reminds me. I was at City Hall in 2018 for the Tax Amazon campaign with a couple other ironworkers who supported taxing big business to put us to work building public housing for things that our community actually needs, instead of more luxury condos that sit empty and luxury hotels that at this point aren't doing anybody any good. And we were kicked out. It's funny that Herbold said, I can't hear if they're booing or clapping or see if they're shaking their heads. We were kicked out of council chambers for cheering when a supporter of the tax made some really powerful points. And we had to make a lot of noise to demand being brought back into chambers. But it was these same council members that kicked working people out of council chambers for doing the things that they're so concerned they won't hear us do now, which is frankly just incredibly dishonest, disgusting, and ridiculous. So yeah, I'll turn it back over. To Adam here with the council office, and yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Logan and Emily, for participating in that caravan, the car protest, and for reporting on, what that looks like, and also on why it's so urgent that we pressure council and express our disapproval at their unwillingness to pass this tax on big business to fund COVID-19 relief, build social housing, and fund Green New Deal programs. I'm going to turn it over now to Jonathan Rosenblum in Councilmember Salon's office, who's going to go over some of the key talking points that we want to make to City Council today when given public comment, and then also with our neighbors, our coworkers, friends, and family, as Shama and Logan and Emily were saying. This is something that we need the community to continue to be really vocal about, and we need to know how to talk to people and what points to make, because the council is really trying to obscure the basic reality that this is a deep crisis, a deep emergency. Big business has the money to pay for the crisis, but we need community, and we need organizing and political pressure in order to get the corporate council to do that. So Jonathan, why don't you go ahead and take it and highlight some of those points that people can make and how to make them during public comment.
That's great. And solidarity to everybody who's out there driving around, being safe out there as we protest in a socially distanced way to win our tax Amazon. Ted, would you be able to put up the slides that we have for this section? We have a brief set of slides. Here we go. Guidelines for tax Amazon public testimony. Today, a number of you I know are signed up to give public testimony. want to just review some of the key guidelines that are true for every time we do this, but also go to some specific issues for today, given what we've heard about what's happened in the last few days with the Democratic majority on the council basically canceling the tax Amazon legislation hearings. Anytime that you sign up to publicly speak these days, with so many people speaking, the chair of the meeting will usually limit speakers to 1 minute. So you'll have about, count on 45 to 50 seconds really to speak once you include introductions and everything. When you speak, obviously be yourself, right? Be relaxed. You're having a conversation. Speak at your normal pace. Don't rush your words, because then they won't be fully understood and appreciated. And of course, tell your story. Make your arguments from a personal perspective. Let's go to some of the key points that that we're going to talk about in just a moment. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, let's go back up to the first previous slide, please. I'm sorry. Nope, other way. Slide number 2, please. Could we go back to slide number 2, please? Slide number 2. Ted, if you could please just go to the top of the show and then go 1 slide down, that would be great. I think we may be having some technical issues, so I will just review this stuff in person. That obviously when you start off giving public comment, introduce yourself, where you live, what neighborhood you're in, council district, if you know your council district, and where you work. If you lost work, where you used to work before the COVID crisis broke out. Also note if you're a member of a union or a community organization. Some of the key talking points that we want to talk about for May 11th for today. If you're giving testimony, there's been a development, obviously. As we know, Councilmember Gonzalez has, behind closed doors, reached the conclusion that she's going to cancel our hearings on tax Amazon, at least through the end of May. And so we have a few points that are very important to underscore in your remarks. And if we can get the slideshow back, we will, but I'll just go through them with you right now. First of all, Seattle's working people need you to pass the Swamp Morales Amazon tax without watering it down, because we face a triple COVID emergency. I think people are familiar with the triple COVID emergency: the public health crisis that we have, the joblessness crisis, and the homelessness and housing affordability crisis. Secondly, by halting the committee discussion on the Swamp Morales Amazon tax, the Democratic Party establishment has once again betrayed working people, but you're not going to stop our movement. Thirdly, it's absolutely shameful to see the abdication of political leadership on the part of the council majority to put off approving our tax Amazon legislation. Really, the question before us today and the question before this council is, who will pay for this crisis, this deep recession that we're going through and about to go into even deeper? Big business and the wealthy, or working people? And it's important, if you can, in your remarks, to come back to that framing. Who is going to pay for this crisis? Big business and the wealthy, or working people? Fourth point, your refusal to tax big business signals that you are going to place the cost of this recession on the shoulders of working people who are already overburdened in the form of austerity budgeting, mass joblessness, and ever worse housing and climate crises. And then fifthly, and finally, the betrayal of the council majority, betrayal by the council majority of working people is yet another reminder that we need politically independent movements accountable to working people. We obviously can't count on the Democratic Party establishment. That was true in 2018 when they voted to repeal the initial Amazon tax, and it's also true today. We need our own political party. We need our own political structures to fight for the working class issues that are vital to us. Just a couple of facts to remind people, and I know that Logan and others covered these very well earlier on, but I'll underscore them. The Amazon tax exempts 98% of all businesses. It taxes the top 2% of businesses to provide emergency cash assistance to up to 100,000 vulnerable working class households. It will massively expand affordable, publicly controlled social housing, 10,000 new rent-controlled homes in the next 10 years. It will upgrade tens of thousands of existing homes to meet Green New Deal standards, and will create and support thousands of good union jobs in doing all this work. And we had this slide up earlier before our slide deck malfunctioned, but there is a very good infographic on Councilmember Sawant's webpage. Where you can see, and it looks like there's an attempt to get it up here, a very handy infographic that outlines what the Amazon tax does exactly. If we can't get it up on the screen, I'll just read to you the website a couple times. It's www.seattle.gov/council/Sawant. There we go. So if you're not driving and you would like some basic information on the Amazon tax, please go to that website that's listed at the bottom of the screen, seattle.gov/council/Sawant. And when you get to that screen, click on the Tax Amazon headline on the left side, and you will get immediately to the page that has this infographic. Again, thanks everybody for being on. I am now going to turn this back to our MC for the watch party and caravan, Adam, and we will move forward, and the council meeting with public comment is going to begin in less than 20 minutes. Thank you, Adam.
All right. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for giving us a little bit of insight into how to most effectively make that public comment. And again, apologize for some of these technological difficulties that we're having as we try and really respond to what has been attack after attack from the political establishment on this movement that ordinary people have been building over the course of many months this year, but in reality over the course of years. And it's just worth remembering that this is not some small group of stakeholders, as it's been referred to by other council members. We're talking about dozens of organizations, 500 people coming out to the Tax Amazon launch party on a snow day in January, followed by hundreds of people at each of organizing meetings, action conferences to determine how to most effectively fight for this legislation. And it is, again, worth remembering that we're not talking about some exorbitant amount from those who have the least among us. In reality, that's what we're already facing, where we see that the poorest 20% of our population paying nearly 20% of their income in taxes, where the wealthiest 10% pay less than 3%. In practice here, what we're talking about are $1 trillion corporation refusing to pay a tiny sum. And it's just worth remembering the Amazon tax that was repealed in 2018. Amazon went to war against that, threatening to move thousands of jobs, and ended up moving those jobs even after Mayor Durkin and the council, 7 out of 9 council members shamefully repealed that tax. It's worth remembering that Amazon, just with 1/4 of their profits from that year, could have paid their portion of that Amazon tax for more than 200 years. In other words, we're talking about an extremely modest sum. Even the Amazon tax, which is proposed this year, which is far more commensurate to the actual need, with $200 million going to COVID-19 relief this year, and then $500 million going to social housing to build thousands of units of social housing, permanently affordable units for working people, that poor people, people who make this community can afford, in addition to Green New Deal programs. This is not something that big business cannot afford. It's something that they do not want to pay because they don't want to be forced to pay taxes to build things like housing for ordinary people or to provide basic, and in this case, basic health services, even in the middle of a pandemic. We're gonna go right now, if we can get a very brief kind of demonstration of the car caravan. I don't know if Logan is in a position to safely, from the passenger side of things, demonstrate this car caravan protest. If Logan is in a position to do that, that would be wonderful. We're also going to hear Shama in a bit, but we do have Logan, so let's go to Logan.
Yeah, you can see we've got a number of cars here, and people are out on the sidewalk carrying signs. We've got sorry, we're dual tasking between the council call and live streaming this, but yeah, there's a number of cars. They got signs sticking out the windows. We got signs on ours calling to rebuild the fighting labor movement, and yeah, it's a good show from people. Pretty lively. Everybody's hitting their horns, but yeah, it's just nothing's gonna happen. Nothing gets delivered to working people if they don't fight for it. So yeah, anybody watching this, if you haven't, this is your first time hearing about the campaign, it's definitely all hands on deck. But that's how we're able to win victories like the $15 minimum wage, and getting the moratorium on evictions. But yeah, I think it's, what city council is doing is they're just trying to stall, right? Kick the can down the road, because they know that working people have, we have a limited amount of energy between work, or struggling to pay bills, struggling to pay rent while we're fighting unemployment and not getting the relief that we need. And so they're hoping that we'll just kind of run out of steam, that we'll get demoralized. And this is the same kind of thing you see with union drives, where the organized labor has come under attack, particularly in the pandemic era, from the Trump appointed NLRB. That's what they do, is they push back, open up the amount of time from the declaration that you're going to have a union drive to when you can actually have the election, because they know that in that time that they can do, captive audience meetings and try and scare the workers about, why they shouldn't have a union, and how it's in their best interest to just, work along with their employer to try and meet their needs. And this is the same tactic where, but instead of captive audience, they have all their hit pieces coming out from, the boss's media, like the Seattle Times. And yeah, this is their stalling tactic, hoping that we'll get demoralized, or that, we can be convinced to work with the employers and play nice with Amazon when they're making billions, and we're being faced with unprecedented unemployment, inability already to pay rents before the crisis. Because that's the thing, I don't want to go back to normal. Back to normal is not being able to afford rent, not getting bankrupted by medical debt, bankrupted by student loan debt, and it's just not enough. So we want to build this fight and tax big business for union jobs, tax big business for public owned housing, and for COVID-19 relief. And much like, I referenced the 15 Now campaign we had here, winning this tax will send a powerful message to working people that we don't have to accept, it's correct, as been put before, someone's going to have to pay for this crisis, right? Like when who's going to pay for it? Like it's going to be either working people, regular working class families, or it's going to be big business. And so this is going to show an example that we're going to make big business pay for their crisis. And it's through doing stuff like this. It's through people calling in through City Hall, and also from us, having doing a ton of phone banking, reaching out to people to get the digital signatures, despite getting stonewalled by the government. The same city legislators that say they're concerned about democracy, but they're going to force us, in order to have any kind of window dressing of democratic process, they're going to force us to go out into the streets and get hard copies of signatures because we can't wait. We can't let their stalling tactic keep us from getting the relief that we need.
All right.
Yeah, as you can see, I'll turn it back over to Adam. We've got a number of people in the caravan. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Logan. It's really exciting to see the cars with the pickets and the excitement and the horns. Let's go over to Councilmember Sawant, who's going to have to leave our watch party very soon to attend the council meeting, but who's going to update us a little bit on some of the things we're going to expect at today's council meeting. And yeah, let's hear from Shama.
Well, I have very little time, and there's not much to update from the meeting, only in the sense that everybody who's signed up for public comment should definitely speak. And I hope you were able to you were able to hear, and we didn't have technology problems. When Jonathan was going over some guidelines that will be helpful for public comment, especially if you haven't done that before. But I just wanted to go over a couple of points, because I think we heard that at least 4 or 5 minutes of what I was saying earlier was not audible to a lot of people because of our technology problems, which I apologize for. We've done overall, I think we've done really well. And I thank Ted Verdone from my office, who's been mainly bottom lining the technology, and it's not an easy task. And I just wanted to make sure to repeat a couple of points that are, I think, crucial for us. One is the reason I went over some of the history of the fight for progressive revenues and tax on big business, tax on the wealthy in this state, is to illustrate that when the movement was not strongly organized in the grassroots democratically and depended overly on establishment politicians, on hoping that they would make it happen, and on this idea that we should not actually have a fighting approach, that we should be at peace with the establishment, that is precisely when we have not won victories. And on the flip side, the times when we have won victories, like with the $15 minimum wage, like the many renters' rights victories that we have won, we won them precisely because the movement refused to take that kind of conciliatory approach towards the establishment, recognized that this is class struggle. We didn't create it. Class struggle exists under capitalism. And in fact, as many have said in the past, it's been like aerial bombardment against working people from the billionaires, from the elite, and the politicians who represent them. So we should unapologetically be fighting for our rights, for our community members. And that is a true 1,000-fold in the context of the pandemic. If we needed an Amazon tax last year, we need it 10 times more acutely now. As I said, we are heading into a joblessness. And I think we have to understand that the excuses that the politicians are giving are exactly that, excuses. They're not the real reasons why they are attempting to stall our movement. In reality, the same council members who are declaring their allegiance to legal matters this year, almost exactly 2 years ago, they were perfectly willing to blatantly violate the same laws in order to carry out a backroom deal with big business and then repeal the Amazon tax. So I don't think I think it's crucial for our movement to not buy into these excuses and recognize that the reason they are resorting these excuses is because on the one hand they want to do the bidding of big business, but on the other hand they feel pressure from the movement and they need to maintain their progressive credentials one way or another, and so they're hiding behind these legalistic and bureaucratic maneuvers. But we have to see our job, if we are to actually fight for community members, our job is to see, look beyond that, read between the lines and understand that this is not about legal questions, because the same council members almost 2 years ago exactly were willing to violate that same law. So how is it that they're suddenly now waking up to legal concerns? It is what's underlying both what they did in 2018 and what they're doing now is their loyalty to big business that has been disguised as, oh, I want to do this right. And I think we have to put this back on them and say that, what is reckless is not acting in the interest of working people who are going to be crushed in this recession. And this is not hyperbole. We are heading into what economists are telling us is going to be the mother of all recessions. And it is going to be very much like a depression. Already we have seen stunning numbers of joblessness. If we don't fight for our rights, we are going to pay for it through massive impoverishment, joblessness, demoralization, and a real stunning effect against working class movements. So if we want to avoid that, then we should, continue to be energized and really fight back. And as I said before, and I'll end on this, the reason I am energized myself is because I have seen hundreds of my fellow community members feel really empowered, continue to feel empowered, and feel angry at this decision by the Democratic establishment and say, I want to fight. What can I do? So, like I said earlier, there is no shortage of tasks for all of us. Please sign up for postering shifts. People have already done that, and it gives them the chance to safely and socially distanced be out in the sunshine. That's a great opportunity for you to spread the word about the Amazon tax. And as I said earlier, let's color this city in Amazon tax colors. Make sure our fellow working people know we are fighting for something that is worth fighting for, and that they should join our struggle. And so in closing, I'll just say, join us at our town hall that's coming up on the 20th at 6 p.m. Solidarity.
All right, thank you so much, Shama. Thank you everybody who was able to join us on this watch party. It's 1:57, so please, if you're, we'll be live streaming the city council meeting from these feeds, so you can just stay on and watch the city council meeting, listen to the public comment. If you're signed up for public comment, now is a good time to call in per the instructions that you've seen. And those who are watching should please continue to watch through this feed. As Shama was saying, this is not a one-off thing here. We know that working people are going to be paying the costs of this crisis in a number of ways if we don't organize and fight. We've seen the last, the first of the month, April 1st and May 1st, we've seen huge sections of renters nationwide, millions of renters, and state and locally thousands and thousands who have, been laid off and are unable to pay their rent. So there's struggles of renters wanting for the suspension of rent, mortgage, and utility payments so that the big corporate management companies and the big banks pay the costs of the crisis and not working class renters, working class homeowners, and struggling small businesses. Similarly, we need to tax the biggest businesses who are in our city who've been making out like bandits over the past several years, while housing gets less and less affordable, while basic services get neglected and our communities get neglected as well. So we need to organize and fight. It's an exciting, if not trying time right now. We're going to go over to the city council meeting very shortly here. And again, thank you so much for joining us on this watch party. We're going to have people that are giving public comment safely from the caravan, either pulling over if they don't have if they're not in the passenger seat, or if they are in the passenger seat, giving public comment from there, so that we can feel some of that energy and we can hear the horns being honked. But again, please stay on while we patch it over to the city council meeting. And really appreciate people joining us for this city council meeting to tax big business for COVID-19 relief, for social housing and Green New Deal funding. So if Ted, you could put that screen up here, and we will patch people over to the city council meeting.
Switching over now, Facebook viewers should expect a couple second interruption.
Meeting of the Seattle City Council will come to order. It is 2:00 p.m. I'm Lorena Gonzalez, President of the Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Strauss,
Present.
Councilmember Herbold, Councilmember Juarez, Councilmember Lewis,
Present.
Councilmember Morales,
Here.
Councilmember Mosqueda,
Here.
Councilmember Peterson,
Here.
Councilmember Sawant,
Here.
Council President Gonzalez,
Here.
7 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next is presentations. I am not aware of any presentations. So we'll move on to approval of the minutes. The minutes of the City Council meeting of May 4th, 2020 have been reviewed. If there is no objection, the minutes will be signed. Hearing no objection, the minutes are being signed, and I'd ask that the clerk please affix my signature to the minutes. Okay, adoption of the referral calendar. I'm going to move to adopt the proposed introduction and referral calendar.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Mosqueda, I understand that you have a proposed bill that you would like to move for introduction and referral to the City Council that is not on the published introduction and referral calendar, nor was it distributed by 5 p.m. on Friday. So before that motion can be made to amend the introduction and referral calendar, the council rule relating to circulation of a bill for introduction will need to be suspended. So if there is no objection, the council rule will be suspended to allow consideration of a bill for introduction and referral that was not distributed by 5 p.m. on Friday. Hearing no objection, the council rule is suspended, and Councilmember Mosqueda will proceed with proposing an amendment to the introduction and referral calendar.
Thank you, Council President. I move to amend the proposed introduction and referral calendar by introducing Council Bill 119791, entitled An Ordinance Related to the City's Response to the 2020 COVID-19 Crisis, amending Ordinance 126000, which adopted the 2020 budget, changing appropriations of various departments and budget control levels and from various funds in the budget, declaring an emergency, and establishing an immediate effective date by a 3/4 vote of the council and by referring it to Seattle City Council.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Are there any additional comments on the amendment? Okay, hearing no additional comments, will the clerk please call the roll on the amendment?
Strauss,
Aye.
Herbold,
Aye.
Juarez, Lewis,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Mosqueda,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
Sawant,
Aye.
President Gonzalez.
Aye.
8 in favor, none opposed.
Okay, the motion carries and the introduction and referral calendar is amended. Are there any further comments on the introduction and referral calendar as amended? Great. Hearing no other comments, I would ask the clerk to please call the roll on the adoption of the introduction and referral calendar as amended.
Strauss,
Aye.
Strauss, Herbold,
Aye.
Juarez, Lewis,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Mosqueda,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
Sawant,
Aye.
President Gonzalez.
Aye.
8 in favor, none opposed.
The introduction and referral calendar is adopted as amended. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move into public comment. And then again, colleagues, if you are not speaking and you haven't muted yet, I'd ask that you mute so that we don't hear ambient noise during public comment. Thank you. I will moderate the public comment period in the following manner. The public comment period for this meeting is set at 20 minutes, and each speaker will be given 1 minute today, as we have a large volume of individuals who have signed up for public comment, and we want to make sure that we can hear from as many folks as possible. So we will adjust the clock here that's up on the screen. Each speaker, again, will have 1 minute to speak to us. I will call on each speaker by name and in the order in which they registered on the council's website. If you've not yet registered to speak but would like to, you can sign up before the end of public comment by going to the council's website at seattle.gov/council. The public comment link is also listed on today's published agenda. Once I call a speaker's name, staff will unmute the appropriate microphone, and an automatic prompt of "you have been unmuted" will be the speaker's cue that it is their turn to speak. Please begin speaking by stating your name and reference the item that you are addressing. Public comment should relate to an item on today's agenda, the introduction and referral calendar, or the council's 2020 work program. Speakers will hear a chime when 10 seconds are left of the allotted time. Once the speaker hears the chime, we ask that you begin to wrap up your comments. If speakers do not end their comments at the end of the allotted time, again, in this case, it'll be 1 minute, then the speaker's microphone will be automatically muted to allow us to call on the next speaker. Once you have completed your public comment, we ask that you please disconnect from the line. And if you plan to continue following this meeting, we ask that you do so via Seattle channel or the listening options listed on our published agenda. So once again, the public comment period is now going to be open, and I'm gonna begin with the first person. Again, 20 minutes takes us to 2:28. So I am gonna call on the first speaker, which is Emily MacArthur.
Hi, my name is Emily MacArthur. I'm a District 2 resident and a renter, and I'm out front of City Hall with 25 other cars, a dozen bicyclists, and people on foot demanding that City Council reverse their decision to shamefully cancel the discussions on tax Amazon, the one especially that was supposed to happen this Wednesday, passing emergency funding related to this COVID emergency. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I reject on every premise that somehow money that's related to COVID is not COVID-related legislation. It's completely ridiculous and absurd, and this decision needs to be reversed immediately. I think that there is a triple emergency that people are facing. I know that my house is struggling to pay rent. I know that my house is facing joblessness. How about council members? Are they facing these? Are the billionaire backers who helped get our mayor elected facing this? No, they're not. That's who we should be taxing.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to the next speaker, who is Marilyn Yim.
Hi, my name is Marilyn Yim, and I'm urging you to vote no on Council Bills 119787 and 119788. Like many small landlords, we've already been working with our tenants to survive this crisis, offering rental payment plans, deferring rent payments, and removing late fees. The payment plan bill does not anticipate this, and it will invalidate all of these agreements as soon as it's signed by the mayor. We cannot carry the significant burden of waiting potentially 24 months to be made whole. No small property owner can withstand going for a year without income while paying taxes, mortgage, utilities, repairs, maintenance, and other costs associated with the health, safety, and welfare of their residents in the community, which all continue to add up while rent goes unpaid. Regarding the ban on eviction history and rental screening, people affected by COVID won't even have an eviction history through next spring. There's no need to pass this legislation at this time when there are already protections in place. This means that the only people who will be protected are those who electively chose not to pay their rent. It is unfair to prevent enforcement of payment plans and non-payment for financially able tenants who choose not to pay for their housing. It's also questionable whether this can be considered legal during this emergency because it's not effective until after the emergency is over. Please provide rental subsidies. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Jennifer Lakish.
Concerned that the City Council. Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Jennifer Leakish. I'm concerned that the City Council is using the pandemic shutdown as the means to implement dangerous housing laws that create open-ended relief of financial responsibility that no business can afford. The Washington Attorney General has said that during this time period, the city can only pass legislation that is necessary and routine, like paying bills or those that are needed to deal with the outbreak. The City Council's proposed bills CB 119787 and CB 11978 are not necessary nor routine and are not needed to deal with the outbreak and so cannot be considered at this time. Every new rule that City Council implements has a cost that is ultimately passed down to residents. For example, universally banning evictions, implementing the first-in-time process, and now the proposed inability to screen tenants for prior evictions results in higher rents. I urge you not to pass CB 119787 and CB 119788. They are bad for tenants and bad for our city. City Council should be working with housing providers instead of building barriers that prevent affordable rents.
Thank you. The next speaker is Neil Wilson.
Independent housing provider. Hi, my name is Neil Wilson. I'm an independent housing provider with 5 units on Beacon Hill. I testified last week asking the council to stop using inaccurate information to support legislation, whether it is misstating national rent collection numbers or writing a 6-month eviction moratorium knowing it is effectively a 12-month moratorium. Seattle holds itself out as a progressive and innovative city. However, since 2015, including today's bills, are without input or consideration for property owners most impacted. This is not progressive or innovative. It is insular. It reflects legislation without representation. Once again, I ask you to please give independent landlords a voice at the table, along with the ever-present tenant advocates. City leaders should be brainstorming new ideas and testing them against real data. These bills aren't innovative policies. These are old ideas that are only novel because of how drastically unfair they are to the regular citizens in the city. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is William Shadbolt.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is William Shadbolt, and I'm a housing provider with a few rentals in Seattle. I'm asking you to reconsider both of these anti-landlord ordinances today, items 1 and 2. My wife and I have already sold several rentals in the city of Seattle due to ordinances the city has already passed. Every single one of them is no longer a rental. The council is directly responsible for pushing up rents by reducing supply. Council President Gonzalez wrote in a May 7th letter with the Attorney General's advice on what the council can pass and not pass. This is neither routine and necessary, nor is it to deal with the outbreak when you've clearly got an eviction record from prior to the crisis that you're trying to ban, and banning late fees in 2021. Meetings Act. In addition, eviction records are public records that the public has access to. Forcing small landlords of interest loans is clearly a government taking. I'm simply asking you to uphold your oath of office not to break the U.S. and Washington Constitution by passing these 2 ordinances, and stop doing things to force up rent.
Okay, next up is Alicia Lewis. Please start the timer. Alicia Lewis. Okay, we're gonna move along since I don't hear her present. So if we can go on to the next caller, please. The next caller is Sujatha Romney.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, hi, my name is Sujatha. I'm here to support the Tax Amazon initiative. I have no words to express my angst and outrage of the machinations of Councilmembers Gonzalez and Herbert under pressure from big businesses to go and hide behind legalistic escapes instead of facing and addressing the issue at hand. The Roman Emperor Nero was known to give grand feasts to the who's who of Rome. Fires would be lit and the city's poor would be burnt at the stakes to illuminate the evening. The historian Tacitus, while writing this, asked us to think not about Nero, but his guests, wondering what sort of intelligentsia it took to enjoy food, drink, and drama while each of their own went into flames. You have a simple choice. You either stand up and do what is right, or you go down in history as one of Nero's guests. Thank you.
Next up is Jessica Scalzo.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jessica Scalzo. I am a renter in District 3 with Councilmember Sawant. I am part of the Tax Amazon movement, and I was sad to learn that there will be no vote on the legislation until maybe June. I do think that this Tax Amazon legislation is emergency related to COVID-19 because there is the provision for an interfund loan to provide immediate cash assistance to at least 100,000 people who are struggling with this emergency. And so I think at least we need to address that because people are struggling. We all know that. It seems like there's always an excuse not to tax big business. It's never a good time, so I think we just need to do it. Someone's going to have to pay for this crisis. Big business has the money, so let's help people and utilize this resource. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Leslie, I think it's Hogue, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your last name.
Hi, thank you. It's Hoagie. My husband and I have a few rentals that we provide at below market rates, and we're asking you to vote no on bills 11977 and 788. Please focus on rental assistance, not on control of our leases. We are already in close touch with our renters and are working with them. Small-scale housing providers occupy a valuable niche in this city. We're being treated like corporations who own thousands of units. We know our tenants, we know their situations, and we're flexible to an extent. We don't have deep reserves because our rents are low. My husband and I offer discounts to our vulnerable tenants. One whose business has been shuttered refused to take it, saying it's government's job, not ours, to cover this. He managed to get an SBA loan to cover his expenses, but I worry for him taking on more debt. I care about the people we rent to. At an open house once, one prospective renter asked me, "What's the catch?" I told him there was none, but he worried the apartment was too good to be true. We're jeopardized by your regulations. Please include us in your decision making. Small scale.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maya Garfinkel. Maya.
I'm Maya Garfinkel. I'm an organizer with the tenant education organization V Seattle. I'm voicing my support of CB 119787 and CB 119788. Renters know that greater housing security leads to healthier communities. An eviction case on your record, even if unsuccessful, can follow you throughout your life as a renter and make it more difficult to find a new home. Of those sampled in the Seattle Women's Commission Losing Home Report, most evicted tenants became homeless. 37% were completely unsheltered, 25% were in a shelter, and another 25% were with family or friends. This would escalate the current health crisis. This bill would mitigate these effects and make it easier for evicted people to find new homes. Additionally, 43% of those interviewed for the report had to leave Seattle as a result of their eviction. If we do not take action, this crisis will push even more people out of our city, especially low-income people, especially women of color. We have a duty to fight for our neighbors to stay in their homes and help them stay healthy. Thank you very much. Please vote yes on CB 119787 and 1.
Thank you for calling in today, Maya. Next up is Edmund Witter.
Hi, my name is Edmund Witter. And I run the Housing Justice Project for the King County Bar Association and also a District 3 renter. I'm asking you to pass both CB 119787 and 119788, and I want to thank Council President Gonzalez and Councilmember Morales for their leadership on these bills. The bills provide important protections to tenants who fall behind in the next few months due to circumstances beyond their control. Right now, there's not enough rental assistance for tenants who are falling behind, and currently our largest program, which is one that we co-administer with United Way, Home Base, is backlogged by 5,000 households on a waiting list, and that was after we only kept the application process open for 48 hours. Payment plans are necessary to make sure that tenants are going to be able to catch up on their rent in the event that we don't have any other means or other assistance available for them. And also, Councilmember Morales' bill is extremely important. I want to correct an inaccurate assertion that this is unnecessary in light of last week's ordinance, but this bill provides protections for tenants who are evicted for reasons other than rents and for perfectly benign reasons. We see a lot of tenants on our hotline who are not able to move at the end.
Thank you, Edmund, for calling in. Just a quick reminder for folks who are listening in and waiting for their turn on the public comment. We're only doing 1 minute today because we have about 45 people signed up to give public testimony. So get your pencils sharpened and start editing your comments now. So next up is Laura Lowe.
Hello, Seattle City Council. I'm thankful for the opportunity to speak today. I've been a renter in District 7 since last April. Before that, a renter in the U District since 2009. I'm speaking in favor of CB 119787 and CB 119788. I volunteer with an organizing collective, Share the Cities. We've hosted tenant rights events, and we often hear the stories of renters who were already experiencing massive housing insecurity, and because of that, both physical and mental health struggles. And now with this new level of housing emergency that's going to continue way beyond any expiration dates that we've talked about here, we really need these kinds of protections. The council so far has indicated that you understand the deep power imbalance that exists between landlords and tenants, and I applaud the city for not letting people who are not at risk of losing their primary residence to set the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling in today. And next up, looks like we have two folks on the same line. So it's Reverend Angela Ying and Sister Anila Afzali.
Thank you. Sister Anila Afzali and I, Reverend Angela Ying, with 72 faith leaders, urge you to please reconsider and adopt and pass the Sawant Morales tax Amazon legislation now. Our city is facing a triple emergency. And when we have an emergency, we do not wait until we hope that the emergency is over, because it just gets bigger. We show real leadership and do everything in our power possible to help the hundreds of thousands of people. Few, if any, city councils have had an opportunity to do so much good. History will judge whether we as a city and city council in times of crisis took care of our most vulnerable and the working people. Make our children and our children's children proud that we did everything possible rather than nothing. Adopt and pass the tax Amazon legislation as is now. Thank you, and do the right thing. Peace be with you.
Hey, next up is John Wisdom.
Hello. Hello, thank you. I'm asking the council to think of small housing providers like myself who are speaking today as people who have financial needs and financial obligations just like you, the members of the council. I would like you to try to imagine a scenario in which you would be asking a retiree like me who depends on rental income to potentially forego that income for 6 months or more for the benefit of someone who is gainfully employed and has the ability to pay. The evictions ban and these ordinances under consideration today would do just that. If you're going to go ahead and continue with legislation that threatens and sacrifices the security of my income, I'm asking that each of you pledge to make the same sacrifice for the duration of the evictions ban by donating your salaries to a rental assistance fund until the ban is over. Will you make that pledge?
Thank you so much for calling in today. Our next speaker is Leanne, either Stivers or Stivers?
Stivers.
Stivers.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Leanne Stivers. My husband and I are calling in to strongly ask you to oppose any anti-landlord acts such as the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act, co-sponsored by Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. We're an older retired couple, and we own a small 4-unit rental home in Seattle with an average unit rent of $1,300 per month. We have no pension, so this rental income is, in effect, our retirement pension. Canceling rent for all tenants, regardless of ability to pay, would leave us with extraordinarily high bills and no income to cover them. Note that we are open to rent modification potentially, but currently we're paying annual Seattle City property taxes of $11,000 and growing by 12% per year, and totaling over $35,000 annually for all the utilities, insurance, management fees, common area cleaning, maintenance, and repairs. This doesn't include our mortgage. And
Okay, next up is Daniel Ojalvo.
Hi, this is Daniel Ojalvo. I'm a software engineer and I live in Seattle District 1. I'm here to speak in support of taxing Amazon and passing it as quickly as possible. I think one of the big risks that has been put around is that jobs, quote unquote, in other cities in the country, is that if you look at the stock prices of all of our major employers here, they've all gone more or less back to normal from the recent crash of a few months ago. And that's a sign that there's going to be a lot of funds and a lot less risk to their companies. And the other part of it is that these companies aren't going to move because there's a huge talent pool, myself included, who would rather work here in Seattle than work elsewhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, we have quite a few more people who are signed up for public testimony. I'm going to extend the public comment period, which is about to expire. I'm going to extend it for an additional 20 minutes if there is no objection. So that would take us to approximately 2:50 p.m. Is there any objection? Okay, hearing and seeing no objection, public comment period will be extended until 2:50 p.m. We will now hear next from Kate Rubin.
Hi, I'm Kate Rubin. I'm the executive director of the Seattle Housing Justice and Tenant Education Organization, and I'm calling in support of Council Bill 119787. This pandemic is especially scary for renters, many of whom are facing joblessness and will inevitably be facing eviction court upon the end of the moratorium. This pandemic is unprecedented and a global crisis, so we should be treating these evictions as a temporary problem rather than allowing them to have these permanent consequences, because an eviction case on your record, even if unsuccessful, even if you come to terms with your landlord outside of court, it can still follow you throughout your life as a renter. We need to fight and protect our neighbors. And so this means that we need to understand that this is temporary and should not be following renters throughout the course of their life. Thank you.
So much for calling in today. Next up is Nico Eblum Tabanja.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Nico Eblum Tabanja, Government Affairs at the Rental Housing Association of Washington. IHA has a membership of over 5,000 housing providers to pay less than $20 a month for forms, education, and other resources designed to self-manage property. Even before the emergency orders on evictions, IHA was one of the first to publish best business practices to waive late fees, hold physical evictions and rent increases, and work with renters to create payment plans. While we stand ready to work with stakeholders to develop policies to address the financial crisis being felt by both tenants and our members, we cannot support CB 119-787 and 788. This bill contains no nexus between tenants affected by a loss of income due to COVID-19 economic crisis and a need for installment plan protection. Under the amended bill, rental payments could be paid in installments for up to 1 year after the emergency proclamation, no matter what the circumstances of the tenant not paying rent. The tenant with no loss of income or who may not have lived in the state cannot choose to pay past due installments or neglect paying newly accruing rent owed. Furthermore,
thank you for calling in today. Next up is Logan Swan.
Hi, my name is Logan Swan. I'm a rank and file union iron worker.
Yeah, I'm calling because I support the tax Amazon legislation, and I think it's disgusting that the city council is trying to obstruct it. Seattle was leading the nation in unemployment in the year prior to the pandemic, and since the outbreak, it has continued to lead in unemployment, which is clearly an emergency for jobs for working people, union wage paying jobs. There was a state of emergency declared 5 years ago over housing affordability by City Hall and City Council. And then obviously the COVID crisis, where working families need relief. Like, how many emergencies do you need? You've got an emergency with employment. You've got an emergency in housing. You've got a pandemic emergency. All of these are emergencies. And so to act as if, this legislation isn't relevant to the current situation is incredibly dishonest and is just maneuvering.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Jacob Shear.
Thank you. My name is Jacob Shear. I'm currently laid off from my job as a bookseller at the Elliott Bay Book Company, and I'm also a member of the newly formed Book Workers Union. I am also a District 4 renter, and I'm calling on Councilmember Alex Peterson to immediately support and hold a vote for Councilmember Morales' and Sawant's tax Amazon legislation. I'm calling on Alex Peterson to acknowledge the suffering of Seattle's working class during this crisis and to address it not with platitudes and legalistic maneuvering, but with the exact type of action outlined in Councilmembers Morales and Sawant's tax Amazon bill. Direct financial relief for working class households impacted by COVID-19, immediate investment in social housing and protection for our houseless neighbors, and a commitment to creating thousands of unionized jobs in the wake of unprecedented unemployment. While we've seen measures like temporary eviction moratoriums, none of the steps we've seen taken by our elected officials take into account that COVID-19 will be with us for years, both as a public health emergency and as a sustained economic crisis. There can be no temporary measures. We need the serious and long-term commitment to protecting working class Seattle that tax Amazon provides. Alex Peterson, your choice is clear. You can embrace the failed policies of inaction and austerity that will eviscerate the lives of the most vulnerable community members you represent, or you can stand with the
Okay, our next speaker is Dana Frank.
Hi, I'm Dana Frank, and I'm a Black woman that has been a housing provider for 35 years in the Central District. Historically, no one cared about this neighborhood, and we had to fight alone to provide quality, safe housing. I've personally faced guns, gangs, drugs, robberies during my history as a housing provider, and now that this area is gentrified, I feel this is being repackaged bigotry forced on me as a property owner. From experience, I know one bad tenant can destroy a community, causing tens of thousands in damages and putting other residents at risk. If the council passes these bills, you will continue to make it harder on the tenants you claim you are trying to help. Housing providers will raise the bar and increase approval requirements. If someone obviously on meth who has been evicted and a member of a gang appears with first month's rent, I would not put my other residents at risk. The drug addiction problem on the street is not the housing provider's problem, and we should not be liable or forced to rent to previous evicted renters.
Thank you for calling in today. Next up is Ava Metz.
Hi, my name is Eva Metz. I'm a renter in District 2 and a member of Socialist Alternative, and I support the Renters' Rights Bill that will be voted on today from Councilmember Morales and co-sponsored by Councilmember Sawant. I also wanted to speak to how shameful it is that the city's Democratic establishment, led by Councilmembers Gonzalez and Herbold, is using the pandemic and the emergency from Inslee's order as cover to defend big business. This is a completely disingenuous move. Where were these concerns for legality or democracy back in 2018 when Gonzalez and Herbold and the rest of the establishment council members intentionally violated the Open Public Meetings Act to collude and repeal our first Amazon tax and were forced to settle a lawsuit using our taxpayer money? We haven't relied on the establishment to act, and we're organizing a third action conference this Saturday at 2 p.m. on Zoom. I want to invite supporters to come and discuss the way forward for our ballot initiative to tax Amazon.
Okay, our next speaker is John Priesler. Is John available? Okay, it doesn't look like John is available, so we're going to move to Daniel Swanson.
I work at a small business. Hello, my name is Daniel, and I work at a small business in District 4, and I'm here speaking in support of the tax Amazon legislation. It's been long overdue that we invest in the working class in Seattle immediately and looking into the future. With the tax Amazon legislation, we have the chance to do both. We have a historic opportunity to generate immediate aid for the families struggling most with the COVID crisis, create 34,000 new jobs over the course of the next decade, and begin funding a Green New Deal for Seattle. Instead, it seems that council members Herbold and Gonzalez are taking a historic opportunity to fail the working class of Seattle not once, but twice in their attempts to deny Seattle the progressive taxation measures it needs in order to bring true relief to the working class. We are facing a triple emergency, a pandemic, a housing crisis, and a recession. Our city's unemployment skyrockets while U.S. billionaire wealth has increased by $282 billion. Now is the time to pass bold legislation like tax Amazon. Now is not the time to capitulate to big business interests. I urge the Seattle Council to reconsider postponing, and I urge anyone listening to get involved with the tax Amazon campaign because our fight does not end with this council decision.
Next speaker is Brendan McGovern.
Hello, this is Brendan. I'm a resident of District 4. I'm a renter. I'm outside here with the Car Caravan protest to tax Amazon because it is shameful what the council has done delaying this emergency legislation. Back in 2018, when they repealed behind closed doors voted to repeal the head tax, that wasn't really a whole lot of democracy then either. There was there. And so, these excuses that they are citing to that, they can't do democracy or that they can't, that this isn't somehow emergency legislation is complete baloney. And I really urge them to reconsider. Thank you. I'm an activist of the tax Amazon movement. Woo!
Okay, our next speaker is going to be Daniel Lang.
I'm a student in District 4. I'm a part of the tax Amazon movement. I'll start by saying that I support the tenant advocates on the call today and proposed tenant protections like CB 119787 being discussed today. But I'm primarily calling in to express my extreme disappointment at the council, particularly council members Herbold and Gonzalez, for deciding to cancel discussions on the payroll tax sponsored by council members Sala and Morales. I think Rich Smith put it quite well in The Stranger that the concerns about the Open Public Meetings Act feel like a shallow government transparency argument being used as political cover for the members who don't want to tax big business. We know that council members Herbold and Gonzalez voted to repeal the head tax in 2018, and it is hard to take the council's supposed concern for the OPMA seriously when they were sued for violating that same act in discussing the repeal of the head tax in 2018, and then use taxpayer dollars to pay a settlement for that lawsuit. Tax Amazon movement will continue to fight for progressive taxation in Seattle through our ballot initiative, and we continue our call on city council and the state government to allow online signatures for ballot and candidate initiatives. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Hannah Swoboda.
Hi, my name is Hannah Swoboda. I'm a renter and a part of the tax Amazon movement, and I think that we urgently need the Sawant Morales Amazon tax legislation to be passed without watering it down at all. It's frankly ridiculous that the council has decided to discontinue its meetings on this bill. Like many have said, we're facing a crisis not only of public health, but of housing and of jobs. We need a solution to this that brings in progressive tax revenue from the largest corporations that have not been paying their fair share. It's really the bare minimum that we levy this tax on large corporations operating in Seattle to fund relief for Seattleites and to begin to address the wider crises of unaffordability in the city that will only continue to be exacerbated by the current recession. To not open up this new source of tax revenue means that any relief that is offered to the crisis will be coming from further austerity down the line, by which I mean cuts to vital programs. We can't let the working class of Seattle pay for this crisis. We need to tax big business. I also want to say that I support the renters' rights bill that the council is voting on today from Councilmember Morales and co-sponsored by Councilmember Sawant.
Okay, next up is Aiden Nardone.
Hello, my name is Aidan Nardone, and I'm speaking about Council Bill 119788. A few months ago, when the City Council passed the winter eviction legislation and the rental assistance program that came with that, the mom and pop landlords were the ones that spoke up and talked about the dangers and the pitfalls. If they can't collect rent, they can't maintain safe buildings. You're back again with new legislation, and the mom and pops come back again and talk about the same dangers. Where are the public housing providers? Where's DESC? Where's Lehigh? Where's Compass? Where's the Office of Housing? What are you people afraid of? Why won't you speak up? You risk the same dangers.
Thank you. Our next person is Grayson Van Arsdale.
Hi. Hi, I'm Grayson. I'm a renter. I'm speaking on the need to tax Amazon and big business for COVID relief, social housing, and green jobs. I also support the renter rights bill from Morales, co-sponsored by Sawant. And I'm really disappointed and upset at the decision of the council to cancel these meetings going forward during the pandemic using the Open Public Meetings Act. In many ways, these meetings are far more democratically available than they ever have been before over Zoom. And I find it a horrific abdication of your responsibility to refuse to even vote on the legislation that could frankly save the lives of thousands. Instead, this decision will allow the pandemic to drastically exacerbate the crisis of affordability that was already pushing working people out of Seattle before COVID-19. It's the City Council's job to respond to this emergency. Working people already know what will happen if big business isn't forced to pay their fair share to get us through the crisis. We, workers and renters, will be asked to swallow an austerity budget instead, with raised taxes and cuts on public services. And the caravan that's at City Hall right now shows that that's an unacceptable answer. Tax Amazon and big business who can more than afford it, and do your jobs and give us a vote.
The next speaker is Yvonne Hubbard.
Hello, my name is Yvonne Hubbard. I'm a Seattle native and a renter, and before COVID-19, I worked over 40 hours to support my family, and I was still low income. So Seattle hasn't been affordable, and I've seen Seattle over the years gain wealth, and many families have been pushed out of their homes and their neighborhoods and their communities. And I just want to remind you that we are all in this together, and that this is not a handout. This is a way to help keep families from becoming homeless. Some of them are now laid off and waiting for unemployment, while their financial needs go up. You can help keep families on their feet from becoming homeless, requiring landlords to offer new leases will prevent discrimination. It's hard to find housing after you're evicted. I also ask you to think of students. There's data out there that shows that children who experience significant homeless instability aren't doing as well as their peers. And also, I want you to think of a way to figure out how to support landlords so that they can.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sabrina Argyle.
Good afternoon. This is Sabrina Argyle. I'm a renter in King County. I'm addressing item CB 119788. It's important at this time that we're going through that all renters, regardless of their income or lack thereof during this pandemic, have a safe home. Allowing renters a year to make payment plans to their landlords without worry of their credit being affected is truly important. Landlords and rental corporations need to offer new leases to prevent any discrimination. Housing is hard enough in Seattle, but due to this pandemic of no one's creation, the worry of losing one's home shouldn't need to weigh on any person's mind. I would also hope that at some point the council weighs in on those leases that would expire at the end of summer. Many families will be displaced due to their rental homes being bought by developers and demolished to create million-dollar townhomes and condos. New leases should be offered, and no one should be displaced due to multi-million-dollar projects. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Carolyn Riley Payne.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Carolyn Riley Payne, the president of the Seattle King County branch of the NAACP. The Seattle-King County NAACP opposes the City of Seattle and Department of Justice motion to release the police from remaining consent decree oversight. The NAACP Seattle-King County will work in collaboration with the Office of Councilmember Sawant and other community organizations to respond in opposition to the City of Seattle and Mayor Jenny Durkin's collaboration with the Trump Justice Department. The SPD should not be released from oversight while the police union contract rejects accountability measures. Accountability failings in the Seattle Police Officer Guild contract mean court-mandated oversight is still very much necessary. The SPOG contract appeal process, evident in the case of the Officer Shepard in 2014, tells us that it is still very much needed. The city has yet to address the mechanisms in the police union contract that allow for officers like Shepard.
Thank you. The next person up to speak is Gina Owens.
Hello, this is Gina Owens. I'm a member of Washington Community Action Network, and I'm here today to talk about the payment plans, 119762. I am asking for people to remember that people are losing jobs and their income through no fault of their own during this COVID pandemic. Payment plans are essential, and I'm asking that the council consider extending a 1 year after pandemic lifted for time for people to recover and rebuild for the payment plans. We aren't asking not to pay rent. We're only saying that landlords will get their money in installment plans, so it's not like they won't get paid. Payment plans help prevent landlords from being able to report debt like mine to collections, resulting in unnecessary judgments on renters facing a...
Thank you, Gina, for calling in. Next up is Coco Weber.
Hello, and thank you for listening to me. I am a resident of District 4 and a Seattle resident of 16 years, in which time I have been a student at UW, a volunteer in King County Correctional Facility, a counselor at a community mental health clinic, a teacher, and an artist. I'm currently in an art collective for women, non-binary, and trans folks, centering women of color, and I've seen friends move into their cars, turn to friends' couches, or be forced to leave the city. It's more often than not, it's my LGBTQ friends, Black and brown women of color who are being pushed out. This city has a racist housing history, and to not protect renters in this vulnerable time will continue that legacy. Beyond payment plans, we need rent relief. I strongly urge you to reconsider putting the tax Amazon bill on the table. We also need safeguards so that after this crisis, we will not just be punished for having asked for relief. We need to be sure that we can renew our leases. We need to make sure that folks have a safeguard in place so they're able to continue living in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maya Ramakrishnan.
Hey, my name is Maya Ramakrishnan. I am a renter in District 4 and a student at UW. I'm calling in support of CB 119787 and 788. I'm concerned about the way eviction records are likely to make it very difficult for folks to get back on their feet and back into housing. In this city, we were already in a housing crisis before COVID-19, and now we have a special responsibility to make sure that our most vulnerable community members are able to stay safe and housed during this really unprecedented time. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Next up is Sheree Lynn Lascelles.
Thank you for this time. My name is Sheree Lascelles, and I am an almost 10-year renter in the District 4 in the U District. Thank you for the opportunity to make public comment. Calling in support of CB 119787 and CB 119788, as well as urging council to seek additional material support for rental assistance and vital programming, starting with reopening discussions on taxing big business. If we don't create legislation to prevent back rent evictions that are certain to occur due to losses of income related to COVID-19 and work to regulate how landlords provide tenants behind in rent accessible repayment terms, unnecessary harm will be caused to our community members. I have lived in Seattle for 9 years, 10 months, and 11 days. I live in the same house as I did the first day I moved to Seattle. If my back rent became due today, I wouldn't be alone in these circumstances. I think that the assumption that renters don't have deep ties to Seattle and their displacement won't cause direct negative reverberations to the community is asinine. I also think that that's not the case, and our households being displaced will make it so we cause more.
Thank you so much for calling in today. The next person on our list is Joelle Kraft.
Hello, and thank you, council members, for taking my call. My name is Joelle Kraft, and I am calling regarding Council Bill 119788. I have lived in Washington State my entire life, and I have been a homeowner and also a renter, and I'm asking you to pass this bill because payment plans are going to prevent evictions, and requiring landlords to offer new leases will prevent discrimination and people having to leave their homes. And now we know people can't leave their homes. It's not safe. Payment plans will also prevent the landlords from being able to report debt to collections, as we heard another speaker talk. And it gives the tenant more time to get back on their feet and be able to stay in their home. Right now, and as you know, anywhere, it is hard to find a new place once evicted. It is like a bankruptcy on your credit, and it stays forever. It seems like it. Also, this contributes to our homelessness problem if we don't keep people housed. So thank you very much. Please pass CB 119788, and thank you, council members, for taking my call.
Thank you so much, colleagues. We have now heard public testimony for about 40 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and close out the period of public comment and begin our agenda. I do apologize to those who called in and were waiting, but that we didn't get a chance to get to. But we do have several items of business on the agenda, and we've been going again for 40 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and close out the period of public comment, and we'll go ahead and move to the payment of the bills. If the clerk would please read the title into the record.
Council Bill 119789. A property amount to pay salary claims for the week of April 27, 2020 through May 1st, 2020, and ordering payment thereof.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I move to pass Council Bill 119789. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the bill pass. Are there any comments? Hearing no comments, will the clerk please call the roll on the passage of the bill?
Strauss?
Aye.
Herbold?
Aye.
Juarez?
Aye.
Lewis?
Aye.
Morales?
Aye.
Mosqueda?
Aye.
Peterson?
Aye.
Sawant?
Aye.
President Gonzalez?
Aye.
9 in favor, none opposed.
The bill passes and the chair will sign it, and I'd ask that the clerk please affix my signature to the legislation. Committee reports. Will the clerk please read agenda item 1, the short title, into the record?
Agenda item 1, Council Bill 119787, relating to the use of eviction records, regulating the use of eviction history in residential housing, prohibiting landlords from considering evictions related to COVID-19 during and after the civil emergency.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Again, council members, if you are not speaking and you're on the call, please double check to make sure that you are muted so that we don't hear ambient noise in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and move to pass Council Bill 119787. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass the bill. Councilmember Morales, you're the sponsor of this bill, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you for remarks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. We've all been talking for weeks and weeks now about the crisis that is COVID-19, and we know that hundreds of thousands of Washingtonians have filed for unemployment. A growing number can't afford the basics like food or rent, and many tens of thousands of them are right here in Seattle. And we know that the specter of this crisis, one that none of us could have predicted, shouldn't haunt people for the rest of their lives. And so this legislation would do two things to make sure that that doesn't happen. The first is that it bars landlords from denying housing to tenants who faced an eviction during the mayor's emergency and for 6 months following that. I do want to be clear that this excludes evictions that would result from the threat to the health or safety of neighbors, the landlord, or tenant or landlord's household members. So we've had several people call in expressing concern about that, and want to make sure that that is those kinds of evictions are excluded. The second thing is that it provides cause for order of limited dissemination, which would hide an eviction from a tenant's screening from tenant screening companies. And that's something that we know is important to keep people from losing housing options, especially due to the economic shock of the mass unemployment that we have. We know that when the moratoriums end, people will still be out of work. This isn't going to get better overnight. And so what we're really trying to do here is just make sure that we are protecting people long term until people are able to get back on their feet. And we know that, these evictions and unlawful detainers can follow people around. It might be cleared from your credit report for 7 years, but all a screening company has to do is look that up in the Superior Court website and can still be found. So this is really an attempt to make sure that we are protecting folks who are in financial crisis during this episode, and make sure that they have that protection long term. I'm happy to answer questions.
So Councilmember Morales, I know that you have an amendment that you'd like for us to consider. So I'd like to go ahead and ask that you put your amendment on the table, and then we can